All right, well, thanks, Karen. That's right. We are joined by Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruze, who are, I think it's safe to say, financial experts, right? You know a thing or two?
It's a rumor.
Yeah, it's a rumor. With Ramsey Solutions, and tonight you have a sold-out event, Building Wealth.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're so excited about it. We've been traveling around doing this event here for about, I guess, the last year. And it's just a topic that so many Americans are still asking about. They're like, can I still build wealth in the middle of all this inflation, all this uncertainty? And so being able to give them a direction and hope that they can still win with their money. So yeah, we're glad to be here in Indianapolis to do that.
Absolutely.
But because it is sold out, we're going to bring them to you at home. So let's start out with, what do we want to start out with today? So 4 in 10 people report having $0 in savings according to a Ramsey Solutions survey. Where do they start to get out of that?
You know, saving money or handling your money is an act of intentionality. You got to just do it on purpose. What happens with most people is we earn money and we spend it, and then we look up and go, where'd it go? Instead of happening to your money. And so this idea of being intentional, no one wins at anything accidentally. You don't accidentally save money. Same thing. And so you've got to say, we're going to aim at this. We're going to do the dreaded B word, the budget. We're going to make every dollar behave every month and agree on it with our spouse. And then we've got a game plan that causes savings to appear.
And with the budget, you have a budget app called Every Dollar. So you can fill it out for the people at home who don't know what it looks like. You just plug in the different amounts and say, hey, I got $200 for electric this month. But how can people best figure out how much money to put in what section?
Yeah, so I always tell people, if you're first budgeting, go back for the past 3 months and look at your bank account and just kind of average out, okay, on average, here's what we spent on groceries. On average, here's what we spent eating out, which will make you sick. This is what our cable is on average. And remember, those numbers are before you budgeted, so you can probably decrease some of those that aren't fixed expenses because you're actually being intentional with your money. So I'd say start out there, but always know it takes about 3 months for the budget to work. So Every Dollar is a great, helpful app because it does the math for you. You can drag and drop your transactions because it connects to your bank. So it is wonderful, but give yourself 90 days. Give yourself some grace in this.
So what happens if you're on board but a spouse is a spender? What is the best way to navigate that situation?
You know, what we've got to do is realize that money problems are not really the problem. They're the symptom. And one of the biggest things they're the symptom of is marriage issues. And so what we end up seeing is that when people start budgeting together, setting goals together, dreaming together, even facing their fears together, it becomes this like marriage counseling session to do a budget. It's the weirdest thing. And so really what happens if the spouse on board, that means we don't have a dream for the future that we're both in agreement on, because otherwise we're not going to sacrifice to get to the same place.
What do you have? Do you have anything on that one too?
Yeah. So for couples, I would say, to embrace your differences, because you are going to have a spender and you probably are going to have a saver. Opposites attract. And so I always say you need each other in this and see yourself as a team. And so many couples, they have their money issue in the middle of them. But I always visualize you locking arms and looking at the problem out there and say, hey, together, how do we figure this out? And I will say, we are actually both natural spenders. So you can be a natural spender and still be wise with money. So all you spenders out there, you're not terrible.
And for the person at home who doesn't have a savings but also has credit card debt, where should they start? Do they build up a savings first and then tackle the credit card debt, or focus on the debt first? You
know, we've been teaching a thing called the baby steps for years. And the baby steps is, baby step 1 is simply get $1,000, a little starter emergency fund. It's not a full one, but just to kind of, if the tire goes flat, we don't have to put it on a credit card. So a little baby emergency fund, and then list all of your debts, smallest to largest, not counting your home, and attack that smallest one with a vengeance. And we call that the debt snowball, and work your way down through the debts, smallest to largest. And the person that does that, again, with a couple working together, they typically are getting out of debt in about 1.5 to 2 years. Everything but the house. And that includes the big old nasty student loan, that includes the big old nasty car debt, everything. You can do this, but it requires this intense focus and working together.
And you both have podcasts. What's a question that's been coming up more frequently that you can think of?
So when it comes to inflation, I feel like there's just a lot of fear around that. You're seeing your mother-in-law post on Facebook about it. You're seeing the news, and they're talking about it. I mean, it's just everywhere. And so we tell everyone to, focus on facts and not fear, because sometimes it can just feel like it's crazy, right? We go to the grocery store and see eggs and we're like, oh my gosh, how is it costing that much? And so being able to focus on facts, that's why the budget is really important to combat inflation, because you're purposeful with your income, because it can be overwhelming and it can be fearful. But also you may have to sacrifice a little bit in the season and cut back on lifestyle, which no one likes to do. But in order to get that budget to zero, to be able to say my income plus saving, giving, and my spending is at zero is what's really key. And so the inflation topic overall is what we're hearing about the most.
And the importance of shopping around for different services or like insurance, for example. A lot of us are like, it costs what it costs, but what about just calling around different vendors to get different prices to even shrink the necessity spending?
Absolutely. Again, when you start paying attention, you find money. It's like, oh, look at this, my dad got me insurance. This is crazy. So you call an insurance broker instead of just an agent and let them shop a bunch of different companies for you and get the best possible deal on insurance. A lot of people will save $700-800 a year doing that one thing. And when you sit down and you look and go, look at that. I have never turned on that television, that particular app, and I'm paying $9-10 a month. And it's clip that sucker, you know, get rid of it. And so there's a lot of stuff that we just kind of let happen to us that when you start paying attention, it's just cleaning up the dust in the corner. And all of a sudden there's some room to survive a time like this when it is a little bit scary.
All right, well, thanks again for joining us. We have Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruze. Tonight they will be at the sold-out Indianapolis Building Wealth event, but if you couldn't make it, we're glad you joined us.
Thank you for having us.